What's up, A3 crew? Pilot 83 here. And this is the second part of the Jetliner training by FSACADEMY. So, like I said in the first video, I want to go through all these and try this out and kind of rate each one on how I feel about it, and then give a total synopsis at the end of it of how I really feel about the whole thing as a whole package. So this is part 2, like I said. 10 minutes. This is by FSACADEMY. So once again, shout out to FSACADEMY for sending this to me. This is the Takeoff. Is what this is teaching you. So like I said, this is really good for anybody who's not really good with jetliners, who's trying to get into jetliners. I feel like the A320 is probably the best jetliner to learn and start with, as I feel it's probably the most easiest to understand, as it does a lot of the flying for you. So let's go ahead, get to it. I will see y'all out there, and let's check it out. Let's see how it is, guys. Alright guys, here we are back at Gatwick. Let's hear what they got to say for this.
We're at holding point Alpha 2 for runway 26 left at Gatwick, just waiting for the cabin to call ready. Whilst we wait, let's review the takeoff profile. When we're cleared to line up, we'll perform the below the line actions and taxi onto the runway before coming to a stop. Once cleared for takeoff, push the stick forward slightly and set 50% N1 on the engines. This gives us an opportunity to check that both engines spool up evenly. Once the engines are both stable at 50%, set the levers into the flex detent, keeping your hand on the levers in case we have to stop quickly. Keep the nose down pressure on the stick until 80 knots, then smoothly set the stick to neutral. When I call V1, take your hand off the thrust levers, we can't stop anymore. Next I'll call rotate. You need to smoothly raise the nose to 15 degrees. Once we're off the ground, we'll raise the gear and we're on our way. I'll talk you through each step as we go. That's it. The cabin crew are happy that everyone's sat down and we're ready for takeoff. Let's call ATC. Jetliner 488 ready for departure.
Jetliner 488.
Keep flaps 1.
Jetliner 488, line up and wait, runway 26 left.
Line up and wait 26 left, Jetliner 488. Runway looks clear, approach looks clear. Line up on the runway centre line and come to a stop.
Alright, make sure they still got our taxi lights on from the last mission. Turn our parking brake off. Go and turn that on in case we need to do a rejected takeoff. Just doing that a little bit early here. We'll see if he mentions it.
As we enter the runway, turn on the landing lights and we'll finish the before takeoff checklist below the line. Below the line. Cabin secured for takeoff. Engine mode selector normal. TCAS TARA. Packs on. Anti-ice off. Below the line complete, line up only, runway 26 left from Alpha 2. Come to a stop here.
Jetliner 488, cleared for takeoff, runway 26 left, wind 270 at 8.
Clear for takeoff, runway 26 left, Jetliner 488. Great, we're cleared for takeoff. Apply some nose down pressure on the stick and set 50% N1. Keep some nose down stick.
So let's go ahead and do it. 50%.
Engines look good. Move the thrust levers forwards to the flex detent. Thrust is set. Now release the nose down pressure on the stick. 100 knots. V1. Rotate. Smoothly raise the nose to 15 degrees. Good, now hold the nose there. Positive climb, gear up. Engage autopilot 1. Now reduce thrust to the climb detent. Now that we're above S speed, retract the flaps. Disarm spoilers and taxi light off. In Alt Star mode, the autopilot will capture our selected altitude of 5,000 feet. The landing lights add a small amount of drag and vibration, so let's turn them off now that we're in the air and it's daytime.
Alright.
Release the crew by turning the seatbelt sign off and then back on again. Great, we're on our way now and the crew are starting their routine. Next, we'll look at using the automation systems and cover the techniques used during the climb.
Alright. It hasn't been giving me a score, so I don't know if it's supposed to. But let's talk about that. So, how was that? I think the whole takeoff part was very helpful. I'm realizing that I believe there's no part in this where it teaches you how to do a dark and cold start. I think that's something that would be really nice to be added, at least to this plane. But at the same time, I do understand that this is made for jetliners in general. This is not actually a tutorial for the A320 specifically. This is just helping you get a feel for jetliners. Even though this is all about the A320, it doesn't specifically say A320 training. It says jetliner training. But it's definitely got its benefits. There was some things there that I did like for sure. Like teaching you when you should put your flaps up, when you should put your gear up. You know how you don't go full toga every time you take off. You know, there's a time and a place for it. Usually you're in flex. And also checking the engines, make sure that they're spooling correctly. Thought that was really cool. Knowing when to turn off the landing lights and your taxi lights. I feel like all that was good. The autopilot, I feel like, was turned on a little bit early. I've always heard a good rule of thumb is autopilot you turn on at 5,000 feet and above, but don't hold me to that. That's just something I believe I've heard many times throughout the years. But still a lot of good to take from this. This gives you a very good understanding, as it did work out very well. So I'm going to go ahead and add another part into this. We're going to go ahead and continue on to the next part and check that out. And that will be, I guess, maintaining the climb leveling off. So let's get to that real quick. Alright, so here we are. So this is going to be 15 minutes. So this is the climb. So this is what we'll be going over. So far we've done the taxi, we have done the takeoff, and now we're going to go over the climb. And I believe this is something that probably a lot of people have trouble with, is how to properly climb their jetliner. So I really want to check this. This is something I'm really going to take in myself, because I mean, so far there's just little things in this I've kind of noticed that I forget to do a lot. So it's been pretty helpful so far. So let's go ahead and go on and do this. So I will see y'all at Gatwick in just a moment. Alright, A3 crew, so we're back. So it has us in the air. Let's go ahead and get to it and see what we're doing here.
Welcome back. We're back where we left off at 5,000 feet and 250 knots selected. We'll go through some basic automation handling, utilising the autopilot and the Flight Control Unit, FCU. Keep the autopilot and auto thrust engaged for this session, with the thrust levers in the climb detent. As we saw just after takeoff, the speed selector on the FCU is used to set a speed target. With the speed knob pushed in, we're in managed mode, where the Flight Management Guidance Computer, FMGC, sets an appropriate speed, considering any constraints contained within the flight plan. Pulling the speed knob sets selected speed mode, where we set our own speed target. To demonstrate selected speed mode, set a speed of 220 in the FCU. Good. Now a speed target of 220 knots is set, the auto thrust reduces power to allow us to slow down towards it. The auto thrust is used throughout the flight, from liftoff to just before touchdown. On the primary flight display, PFD, there is a green dot on the speed tape. This represents our minimum drag speed and is known as green dot. Green dot speed increases with both weight and altitude, and is the speed at which we have minimum fuel burn, which we'd select if we have to fly a holding pattern.
Which would be this right here, guys.
Now select speed 250 to bring us back up to 250 knots. The auto thrust now adds power up to a maximum of climb thrust. Great, keep us at 250 knots. Below 10,000 feet in most airspace types, 250 knots is the speed limit.
Correct.
We're currently following the flight plan in nav mode, where the autopilot flies us along our route. See how the autopilot takes us around the turn at Novma.
Beautiful. Beautiful out here.
Next we can look at headings. The heading knob has the same pulled or pushed, selected or managed logic. When pushed, the autopilot is commanded to follow the flight plan route as programmed in the FMGC. Turning and pulling the heading knob allows us to select a heading, usually at the request of ATC or for weather avoidance.
Jetliner 488, turn right, heading 190 degrees.
Right heading 190 degrees, Jetliner 488. Turn the heading knob to preset heading 190, then pull the knob to select it. Now we enter heading mode and the autopilot will turn us to our selected heading. Now the autopilot rolls us to wings level on our selected heading. Next we'll look at altitude control. We're currently at an altitude of 5,000 feet using the QNH 1010 altimeter setting reported by Gatwick. An indicated altitude is based on the pressure setting we're using, which changes throughout the day and between locations. One aeroplane may be flying towards another, each using different altimeter settings, making vertical separation unreliable. To fix this problem, when commencing a climb above what's known as the transition level, all aircraft use the same altimeter setting, known as standard. Standard is QNH 1013 or altimeter 29.92.
Jetliner 488 on this heading, climb flight level 120.
Climbing flight level 120, Jetliner 488. Again, to set a selected altitude, turn the Alt knob to set the target altitude in the FCU and pull to select. Give it a try, turn the Alt knob to set 12,000 in the FCU and pull the knob. We now see thrust climb and open climb at the top of the PFD, showing us that climb thrust is being set and we're in open climb mode. Notice how we leave the thrust levers in the climb D10 throughout and the levers don't move in response to the auto thrust. Open climb mode uses pitch to achieve our target speed, which is still set to 250 knots. As 12,000 feet is above the transition level for this airspace, we now set the altimeter to standard by pulling the barrow knob to the left of the FCU. We're now using the standard pressure setting, so rather than climbing to altitude 12,000 feet, we say we're climbing to flight level 120. Above 10,000 feet, or flight level 100, the 250 knot speed restriction no longer applies. Select a speed of 290 knots.
Alright, so I learned a little bit there in the A320 that I did not know.
As open climb uses pitch to control speed, the nose is being lowered to allow us to accelerate. Above flight level 100, we could turn off the seatbelt sign, but we can get turbulence as we pass through cloud layers, so leave the signs on for now. As we reach the altitude set in the FCU, Alt star engages, showing us the autopilot will capture our selected altitude or flight level. We're now established at flight level 120, and Alt mode on the PFD shows that the autopilot will keep us here.
Jetliner 488, climb flight level 210.
Climbing flight level 210, Jetliner 488. OK, set 21,000 with the Alt knob into the FCU and pull for open climb. Great, we're now climbing up to flight level 210. Icing can be a real problem when flying airliners in cloud, and so we have anti-ice systems fitted to the wings and engine intakes. We're climbing through the cloud layer above, so let's use the engine anti-ice. Turn on the anti-ice for both engines located on the overhead panel. Good, this diverts hot air around the inside of the intakes, keeping them warm and free of ice. To get through the clouds more quickly for a comfortable ride and to reduce our icing exposure, select a speed of 270 and see what happens. Remember how Open Climb uses pitch to control speed? Now we've selected a lower speed target, the autopilot pulls the nose up in order to trade airspeed for altitude, giving us a boost in climb performance known as a zoom climb.
Interesting, I did not know
We're using
this.
270 knots, as that is roughly the airspeed which gives the best rate of climb in the A320, getting us through the cloud layer in the minimum time.
Very interesting.
Now we
Did
can
not
see
know.
blue sky above us. We must be getting close to leaving the cloud layer. We're just getting out of the cloud now, so we can turn off the engine anti-ice. Great, it's all blue skies now. Turn off the seatbelt sign and select 290 knots again.
Okay, so I learned a little bit there about the A320 specifically, so that was pretty helpful. A couple things there.
The thrust is still at its climb setting, so the autopilot lowers the nose to accelerate. Great, now the passengers are free to move about the cabin and we're speeding back up. Good job. We'll come back once we're in the cruise.
So yeah, guys, that I thought was very helpful, especially that one. I mean, I learned a couple things there about the A320 that I did not know. So yeah, very helpful, especially, you know, if you're using the A320. Like I said, I think it's probably the best plane to start with to learn. And I know some of y'all who are just getting on the sim for the first time, and y'all might start with the Phoenix A320. This is definitely good to use. I mean, I'm someone who's flown the A320 many times, and I'm learning some things, little things here and there about the A320 that I did not know. So yeah, so far it's, I mean, it has its pros and its cons. Definitely more pros than cons, for sure. That one was very helpful. I'm very interested to see what, you know, as we get further into this, what else, you know, little things that we learned. So let's do one more, shall we? I was going to do two. Let's do three. Let's move on to the third one, and then we'll stop it there so it's not too long, too much. So that way we've covered 4 parts of this flight school for the airliner. All right. So this is the cruise training session. So we're going to see how the aircraft's handling is altered once you reach the rarefied air of the stratosphere. So curious to see what they show us here. I know a good bit about this, so let's see. See y'all back at the plane. Alright, so here we go, guys. Let's get to it.
Like before, keep the autopilot and auto thrust engaged with the levers in the climb detent. Welcome to the stratosphere. In the 1950s, airlines used propeller aeroplanes which had a maximum altitude of rarely more than 30,000 feet. Weather systems and cloud build-ups can easily outclimb these now vintage aircraft, putting your cruising altitude in amongst the turbulence, icing and clouds. The jet engine changed all of this. With a great leap forwards in power, greater speeds and altitudes were now within reach. Our A320 can go up to 39,000 feet, whilst other types can climb as high as 45,000 feet. Flying higher has some distinct advantages. It puts us above all but the very tallest thunderstorms, giving a smoother ride. The thinner air also means we have less aerodynamic drag, so we cover ground much more quickly than at lower levels. We can see evidence of this rarefied atmosphere by comparing our indicated airspeed with our true airspeed. Looking at the speed tape on the PFD, it's reading about 270 knots. Now look at the top left corner of the navigation display, ND, and see a true airspeed of 440. The difference between these two speeds is all to do with the drop in air density with altitude. To understand this, we need to touch upon how an airspeed indicator works. The airspeed indicator is essentially a pressure gauge, detecting the force of the air hitting the nose of the aeroplane. The higher the pressure reading, the higher the airspeed indication. This works fine at low levels, but up here in the higher atmosphere, the air is so much thinner that it causes the airspeed indicator to underread. True airspeed is corrected for altitude, so shows a much more accurate indication of our speed through the air. The skies are busier than ever, so ATC often give us heading changes to maintain our separation from other airliners.
Jetliner 488, turn left 20 degrees for spacing and report the heading.
Left 20 degrees onto heading 150, Jetliner 488. Turn the heading knob and select a heading of 150, pulling to select heading mode. Another method of keeping aeroplanes apart is by allocating a speed to maintain. Because of the airspeed altitude complications we touched on earlier, indicated airspeed isn't a consistent method for en route speed control. Instead, we use another measurement of speed called our Mach number. Mach number is our speed in relation to our local speed of sound. Whilst the speed of sound varies with altitude, it remains useful for keeping traffic separation. Mach 1 is equal to the speed of sound at our current altitude. Mach 0.7 is 70% of the speed of sound, and so on.
Alright, some interesting stuff so far, okay. Definitely some useful stuff to learn. He disappeared.
Now the speed target is in Mach mode.
I didn't say go to Mach, but I guess we needed to.
Jetliner 488, Mach 0.74 or less due traffic.
Mach 0.74 or less, Jetliner 488. Turn the speed knob and select Mach 0.74. Now you'll see the thrust reduce and the Mach number reduce, shown at the bottom left of the PFD.
Jetliner 488, own navigation direct to Gaiac.
Direct Gaiac, Jetliner 488. Alright, let's get back onto our flight plan route. We've been cleared to Gaiac. Press the direct button on the FMGC and enter Golf Alpha India using the FMGC's keyboard. Once GAI is in your scratch pad at the bottom of the screen, click the very top left button to enter Gaiac as a temporary waypoint. This will make a yellow line on the ND appear pointing to Gaiac. Press the bottom right line key where it says direct. That's it. Now push the heading knob on the FCU to engage nav mode. Good. Now we're turning towards Gaiac and returning to our flight plan route.
It's something I've not personally done in the A320 in a while. And I'm kind of upset that I forgot about that.
Jetliner 488, clear of traffic, free speed.
Free speed, Jetliner 488. Our Mach number speed limit has been cancelled. Select Mach 0.78. Now watch how long it takes us to accelerate at this altitude. With these high altitudes, slowing down was no trouble. Speeding up, however, can take a while. Good job. Let's pick this up once we're getting nearer to our top of descent.
Yeah, I feel like that one also had some really helpful information there. And really, like I said, all these kind of give you a background of why certain things are the way they are and why you do them. And I think that's very, very helpful when learning when you're flying, is to really understand why certain things are done and not just knowing how to do them because of habit, but actually understanding what you're doing. So yeah, super, super cool. So far I'm pretty impressed, I'm not gonna lie. So this was part 2, 3, and 4. So takeoff, climb, and cruise. Part 1 we just did that by itself. That was taxi. So I'll have more coming probably tomorrow as we try to go through this and finish this off. But so far, yes guys, I still fully recommend it. I think it is great. As always guys, come join my Discord. is in the description below of every video. Come hang out. That's where we have so much cool stuff going on in there. Probably one of the coolest Discords out there, and somehow I've made it. I don't know how. It's definitely the people there that make it amazing, not me. So very thankful for that. Come join that Discord. Come follow me on Instagram as well to keep up with all my latest videos and flight news as well, guys. I'll see y'all in the air. Until next time, guys, happy flying. Peace. If you made it this far, thank you so much. If you like this video and you feel like I earned your subscription, please hit that subscribe button and that like button so you don't miss out. Until next time, guys, see you in the air.